I
Okay,
did. I
perfect.
just changed my name also.
James Gunn, more like James Goaded.
All right, I think we're good to go. Uh, okay. So, Dark Side, Trump, right?
What was Zack Snyder going for?
Yeah.
Was he as prophetic as George Lucas in Revenge of the Sith? Which, by the way,
All
I
right.
saw your review for Revenge of the Sith. I loved it, man. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
everybody
I've
should go over to Bumbling Cinema. Check out Julius's review for Revenge of the Sith. It's a really great review, relevant, and I think important.
Well, thank you. What I would actually recommend before watching that is the George Lucas talk show where a bunch of comedians get on stage to do a live reading of the Revenge of the Sith. I'm watching it right now, and it's freaking amazing. If you want, you remember Kel from Keenan and Kel, Good Burger,
Yeah, I remember
the
Good
dude who
Burger.
talks. Yeah, well, the guy Ed in the film, he reads for Mace Windu in this. So just imagine that.
Really?
Oh, it's amazing.
I
Haley
gotta
Joel
check it out
Osment
then.
as Anakin. Yeah. I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi. All right, what is happening, everybody? My name is Julius, and I'm here with Mr. Blu-ray Angel himself, and we are here to talk about some DC EU nonsense. It is the dawn of the DCU. Superman is coming out in a couple weeks, and I'm here to talk about two very specific films leading up to this new age of DC, as it were. Angel, what's good? What's good?
How's it going, man? I'm honored. I'm honored to talk about these movies. I can't wait to talk about them with you. Little flashbacks talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League and the Flash. Does the Snyder Cut exist? And will the Flash ever come out? We'll see.
Will the Flash come out and will it be good? The podcast will be. We can guarantee that. But we've talked before about a lot of DC stuff. We talked about the Snyder Cut back when it came out years ago. We did a live stream on, which is now it's on Goat Movie Podcast
Yeah.
on YouTube and everything that you can listen to in depth. We just go through each chapter of the film. If you want the dissection, if you want to go to that class and everything, learn about some DC, check it out there. We're gonna not get too in depth into the film. We're just gonna kind of talk about, what the movie means to us and everything. Because I think it's probably, since it came out years ago, has it's grown more fond to me, and I'm sure that's the case with you, Angel. Even though
Yeah.
you're writing little provocative questions as your username and everything. But we're here talking about DC, the DC world and everything. But before that, explain your anticipation for James Gunn's Superman.
Oh man, I can't even I think put into words with how excited I am for James Gunn's Superman. You've known me for a while. Superman to me, it means everything to me. He is the symbol of hope and um that movie is just something that I've always been looking forward to. It's crazy. I recently had gotten into an accident and one of the first things I thought about versus like, am I okay? Is am I still going to be able to see James Gunn's Superman? So it's that serious, I need to live to see this movie because we've only had a few interpretations of Superman on the big screen. One reason I think is because he actually is kind of a difficult character to capture, and I think to speak to all the comic book side and the general audience. But also, I think he's just difficult to capture on screen because of the spectacle and the writing that you have to match with it. He is the character, he is the superhero, and so with James Gunn's iteration, this is probably what 10 years since Man of Steel. DC fans, Superman fans are starving out here. And it's funny seeing everybody react to like breadcrumbs that we get from either snippets of behind the scene photos or trailers or just James Gunn talking about it. You can tell the DC fandom needs this movie right now, and hopefully it'll save the brand because I think everything post Snyder and how they've handled these characters behind the scenes and executives kind of overpowering artistic expression. It's kind of hurt the brand a little bit. And hopefully this movie here will get us all back on track because look, I love Marvel, but I want DC to match that quality, if not surpass it. Like I know it can because it has before growing up on Justice League, Young Justice, Superman, Keaton's Batman, all the DC glory, from the
Smallville.
80s, 70s, yeah, Smallville to the, contemporary times.
Yeah, man. I mean, that just shows the power of a character. Superman is one of the few comic book characters I feel that has transcended the medium of comic books into just and even pop culture and the culture. Everyone knows the
Right.
Shield, everyone knows the character, the dynamic, and everything. It says a lot that you know. You getting in that accident and like the first thing, well, one of the first things you're thinking of is Superman is because that character is just embedded within culture so
Yeah.
heavily. Like the character is older than most people currently alive right now, which
Yeah.
is an insane thought to think.
Yeah. And some people will tell me online or in person, nah, Batman's the face of DC. Nah, Spider-Man spanks both of them. And I go, I've traveled the world, and one symbol that I've seen in like Greece or Italy, I don't see Batman and I don't see Superman. I see I'm sorry, I don't see Batman and I don't see Spider-Man. I see Superman and his logo in the bathroom, on the walls, people wearing him around with shirts. Like I don't see, unless I'm in the wrong areas. I don't see Spider-Man and Batman's impact over there.
I was
It's
about to say
Superman, baby.
go to North Korea and let's see if that shield's over there.
I bet I can find one. Let that be
Yeah.
my life mission to find a Superman symbol in North Korea.
No, your life mission will be to draw the Superman symbol in North Korea. And
I'm gonna
what
make
happened to
the interview to the quest for Superman.
Oh my God, starring Angel and Kim Jong-un.
And when they ask me if I'm Superman, I go, "We're the same."
Yeah. You're saying this is the interview part too, when it's Team America too.
Yo, Team America is hilarious. I still got to show my brother that one. We all got to
Oh
show him that one,
God.
man. That is
Oh
hilarious.
my God. To think about Robert watching Team America. Oh my God. Well, before we get canceled, Superman, I think I'm super excited. Everything I've seen about this new movie it looks excellent. Um, Even despite the criticism that Gunn has gotten throughout just the whole process of him being um, announced as the new head of DC creatively.
Yeah.
I loved Creature Commandos. I loved the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker. Um, I think what I'm seeing from Superman looks amazing. Even though we'll talk about the character specifically in regards to the Snyder Cut and the great aspects of that, I think that finally we're, headed in the right direction with this film, with where the DCU seems to be headed. And Corn Sweat looks like the character. He fits the character mold in the same way that I think Cavill did, except
Mhm.
I imagine that Corn Sweat is going to get better material to work with. That's just more fitting for the character.
Hopefully, more dialogue.
Yeah, so it would be nice to hear Superman say some words other than "people don't say stay good in this world."
Yeah. No, yeah. I definitely look. James Gunn is the guy. It's something that
Right.
you and I have talked about for years about wanting to see him handle a main DC character. He can do the
Yeah.
misfits. He can do the teams. He can give us an unconventional story that are filled with goofy jokes and gags, but has heart at the center always. He's done that movie Super that you've always recommended.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of like a kick-ass story,
Yeah.
right? He's done Slither, which is kind of like a weird sci-fi horror film with Nathan Fillion. So he has all of that, but can he handle a main one? And that's going to be his biggest test, I think, is to not give us a James Gunn style Superman film, but to give us a Superman film that honors what came before and is kind of inventive with what he presents to us for the future, right? So that's going to be his biggest test. And I love that pretty much from everything we've seen so far, his pitch is What if Superman, we make him like Superman? And I think that's what he's going for. You know what I mean? With the colors, with the costume, with crypto. There's literally some scenes from the trailer that are straight out of All Star Superman for all seasons Superman. You can tell this is a love letter to the comics. And hopefully, when we watch the overall movie, he gives us something um, that'll last. Something like Batman Begins, where you can tell, oh, huge Batman Year One influence. But Nolan also gave us more to chew on that will forever that is forever like imprinted on DC fans that Christian Bale is Bruce or Christian Bale is Batman. And yeah, David Cornsweet for me, he reminds me the most of like Tim Daly's Superman with the way that he's
I was
presented, the way he
about to say that.
talks,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so if he's given more dialogue, which I think Henry Cavill, they didn't give him enough dialogue. I think they didn't give him a lot to work with really to, I think, properly characterize that character. Hopefully, David Cornsweet, that won't be an issue, and hopefully he will be part of a world's finest in the future if everyone goes to show up and watch Superman.
How about this, Nick? Give me the personality of Christopher Reeve and the physicality of Cavill. How about that? You
And the
know?
badassery of New 52 Superman. So
Right.
what
Yeah.
what can you do? Hey, yeah! Stop it.
Exactly. I need him to get to the point where he says, I can cut loose now, and then fucks up Dark Side. All right.
That would be insane. Dark Side, that would be crazy. Or Mongol.
Mongal, smash Mongal. Come on. Um, before we get into the actual conversation, this is a little tangent, okay? A little tangent, and then we'll actually talk about the Snyder Cut. But would you want, okay, not would you want, because we would both want this. I know for a fact. How likely do you think it is when the DCU finally gets to a Justice League film, Gunn is the one to write and direct it?
I mean, I would love to see it. To be honest, James Gunn has not missed with any of his comic book projects or any of his movies that I've seen, even the ones that he's produced. Brightburn, I thought, was a really great take on what if Superman was evil, you know? And
Hmm.
we see his development as a child. I had a great time with that. The only time James Gunn has missed is when he said The Flash is one of the greatest superhero movies that he's ever seen. That's the only time that man has missed and lied to my face. And I think the second time might have been that Damian Wayne is the greatest Robin.
Right. He's the best. Or when he told Michael Rosenbaum right to his face, "You're the best Lex."
Yeah, he's like, you're the best legs, and I'm going to say this in front of the Gene Hackman signed Superman poster. You're the best legs.
Yeah, right. So can I get Smallville season 11?
Nah,
Yeah, yeah, top three lies by James Gunn. This is gonna be a watch mojo. Um,
seriously.
yeah, I would like that film by James Gunn. It really depends on who's making the Batman film, because I know Andy Muschietti is still, I think, on that project.
Yes.
And whenever they do Wonder Woman, it would depend on that. But I would, come on, if Gunn just steps back for a while and is building up to Justice League, whatever you want to call it, New Frontier, whatever, I'm good. I'm fine. I can live happy. I can die happy at that point. Are you kidding me right there?
Yeah. No, I would love to see it, but I think we just got to see his Superman first, man. He has
Yeah.
all these plans for these characters, but I got to see what he brings to the table with Superman. And if he gets Superman right, then I think he'll be able to take care of everybody else, especially Batman, because
Yeah.
he's claimed that Batman is his favorite character of all time. So if he can take care of Superman, then I know he'll handle business with Batman. And honestly, if Andy steps down, which I think might be the case, then I think James might take over. And if it's not just a straight standalone Batman movie, maybe it'll be World's Finest. Maybe that'll tell they'll announce it. And instead of having Batman and Superman feud the entire time, they'll probably be partners against a greater threat.
Yo, how about we give Batman to State Farm?
Wait, yeah, please, because they know what they're doing. All right, they got the budget and they got the Joker. Now give us the Batman.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, that should be a sizzle, like a sizzle reel for that filmmaker, whoever made that State Farm uh
Seriously.
commercial.
Yeah, that commercial, for what it is, it's amazing, to be honest. Those
Yeah.
designs for those Batman villains look good. And I'm telling you,
Hmm.
some people think that the comic designs are cheesy or whatever, but if you look at that commercial, pay attention to the lighting because the lighting really like it gives them a new dimension where it doesn't look cheesy. Like it really puts you there in Gotham with them. And Joker just looks fantastic.
Mm,
Fantastic.
mm. That's the Joker right there, dog. That's all I want from the Joker. I don't. Come on.
Yeah.
If I can't get Joaquin and Pattinson together, you know, give me
Yeah.
that.
Ah, Joaquin.
All right. Well, you know what? Enough disappointment. Let's talk about the Snyder Cut. Um, this film was obviously highly anticipated and willed into existence by the fan base, the fan base of DC, and especially the subsect of Snyder fans, I feel is very powerful in its
Mhm,
own way, willed a movie into existence on Max. And this was during a very specific time during the pandemic where movies like this, the Snyder Cut being a 4-hour film, became a more realistic option. The Snyder Cut, as it was designed, it was not going to be released in theaters the way that Snyder would want it. I could probably see it being like a Batman versus Superman situation where, they release a half version of it and then the full version on digital and physical release and everything. So,
mhm.
can you talk a little bit? And I remember what the conversations we had back in the day, but your own excitement or uh, trepidation regarding the Snyder Cut.
Hmm. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure I was excited. I think there was a time where we weren't sure if it existed yet because there were so many conflicting reports on this, excuse me, on the Snyder cut, whether it was finished or whether he needed to finish it, especially because he was dealing with tragedy. So we just weren't sure. All we knew was for sure was after what we saw with Whedon's version of Zack Snyder's
Mm,
Justice League is that it was an abomination. It
yeah.
was an abomination of a movie. It was, you know, the destruction of someone's artistic vision because clearly what was in that movie was not what Zack Snyder intended. So I can understand the frustration from the diehard Zack Snyder fans that watched the movie and were like, hey, this isn't anything like what he would direct. And certainly they were right because when we saw that 4 hour cut at my house and it streamed on HBO Max, it was a completely different movie. And I was so happy, even with the problems that that movie might have had, even though I don't think I had many with it at all. I thought it was a massive improvement. If anything, a 90 to 95% improvement upon what we saw in theaters. I'm just happy that Zack Snyder was able to complete his vision, whether it's hit and miss for fans. I'm glad that he was given that liberty and respect as a creative, as a visionary, as a director to finish it. And honestly, I was happy with that as a conclusion for his DC Trinity.
Yeah. Well, I remember that night seeing it, it's an event of itself, you know what I mean? Like if it is the at-home version of seeing it at the theaters, I think, for everyone who is
Right.
really excited for it. Like in the way that we would go to different movies, like recently we went to go see Revenge of the Sith or
Right.
th the Thunderbolts, or I guess the new Avengers now. Um, you know,
The
this
Goofies.
the goofy the MCU trash, dog. Uh, um those screenings were pretty filled up because people were actually anticipating the films and everything, and people had a great time watching those movies and stuff. This was the at-home version of that, because of the mystery of the Snyder Cut, right? Like you said, we hear all these different reports of what it was versus what it turned into
Mhm.
after Whedon got his hands on it.
Yeah.
um and there's also the very real life emotional aspect because of the circumstances as to why Snyder exited the project in the first place,
Right.
So I think everyone going into this film, especially, our little group at your place, we're wanting the best from this project. We're rooting for it. And we were sitting next to each other and we're watching it. And from the very first like 5 minutes, we start to realize how different this is from the theatrical cut. And it was something that actually did get us really excited and invested in the furthering of that vision, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, I love that night. To me, it was one of my favorite experiences of watching movies or watching a movie with the boys. You know what I mean? Because we were
Yeah.
all excited. We all love DC. We all wanted to do good. You know what I mean? So when we go
Yeah.
from an abomination to an improvement in the right direction, of course we're all going to be excited, you know? And back to your point about like how they probably should have released this movie with it being 4 hours. I'm a DC fan, I'm a Marvel fan. If you tell me there's a 7 hour Marvel DC movie, I'm gonna watch the entire thing. I'm gonna eat it up. Give me more. Give me a 10 hour film. Give me a 12 hour film. I'll watch it. But in terms of the theatrical release, what they should have done, I think, and it probably would have benefited the studio financially, is they probably should have just released it in two parts. They could have just called it the Snyder Cut Part One, Part Two. The first movie could have ended right before, them about to resurrect Superman, and then
Hmm.
leave that on a cliffhanger, and people would have came back to see Part Two to see
Yeah.
Superman come back. I think it would have made sense as like an event cinematic uh, film to do that. I didn't mind the streaming, but for me, the theater is king, over streaming.
Absolutely. That's something I've heard, the past bunch of years, and I partly agree with um the whole idea of splitting it into two parts, which, why not? That idea of when Ben Affleck says there's no us without him, that's a great, end part one right there. And then the following can be as long as it needs to be. And you can even add some more stuff if you want. Add more character. Give me Green Lantern up in that bitch. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
down with it. Use the Martian Manhunter. Don't just tease him. Give him to me. You know?
Don't
But
just make
yeah,
him Martha. Let him fight.
right. Why was he Martha? Why did you nuke Superman? Um, that's my favorite part when at the end the post credit scene, like the seventh one, uh, the general shows up and is like, I am here to help the Earth finally, and not nuke Superman.
It's like, bro, what were you doing, bro? Like, I needed your help.
Yo, it's canon. Martian Manhunter nuke Superman.
Yeah, that scene's awesome, though. I think Superman regenerating like that, so cool. I think visually,
It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. Yeah. So the
but
movie comes
also
out. We
what I was going to say back to the streaming point
Oh
is
yeah, yeah,
when
sure, sure.
to me when a studio prefers to release something on streaming before a theatrical release, most of the times it just tells me that they don't really believe in the project or they don't really believe in the movie. They want to prioritize subscribers on their streaming app, and that to me is kind of like already a smack in the face to the movie before anyone even has a chance to judge it. So that's why I also think maybe that was a poor release strategy on their end.
Right, like back when they were doing the theatrical cut or the
No,
Snyder
for the
cut.
Snyder cut. For the Snyder
Oh,
cut.
I
Like I,
see.
I felt like the movie probably would have benefited critically and from general audiences if they would have released it in theaters.
Yeah, well, I agree with that because what's funny about the Snyder cut is that um it's actually pretty enjoyable, despite it has a dark tone, like a dark kind of wartime tone and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
there are moments where it's genuinely like fun. You know what I mean? Like with I think they get a lot of the characterization correct, which makes it even more enjoyable. Like, the little interactions with the Flash and Aquaman and the badass Alfred, like those moments of the team getting together and kind of working through their differences. Like, I think it's genuinely like kind of enjoyable, in that kind of way that in that specific way that even Marvel gets with their films. It's like
Yeah.
just fun superhero action and fun character work. So had they split it up into two films, yeah, even back way back, almost a decade ago, it probably would have gone on pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like with that last film from Snyder, I felt like he actually was on the verge of finding the perfect balance of like his style, which is a little more bleak, while also mixing it with that like what you were describing it as a superhero movie with this team and this dynamic behaving the way that we all know them to act as, which is their their characters. Every choice that was made in the Snyder Cut, I think, whether it was writing, visually, or um, just the dynamic between the team, I thought was better than what we saw in the theatrical cut. And like you said, there are a lot of crowd cheering moments in the Snyder Cut. The first one probably being Superman's return, which
Mhm.
gives me chills every single time, and the second
Yeah.
being the Flash reversing
Oh
time the
yeah.
way that he did. I think that to me is arguably the greatest depiction of the Speed Force in any movie, of any speedster. And that says a lot because Evan Peters, that him as Quicksilver in Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, both of those scenes are bangers.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, what's great about the film is that everyone has a moment like that where everyone who's a central player on the team has that kind of that moment, and it's specific to everybody, but like I remember when we were watching it and the Wonder Woman scene where she's introduced and she's doing the bullet thing, with her gauntlets and stuff.
Oh
Like we're all
yeah,
like, yeah, you know,
yeah.
when Batman does this thing with uh I even like dialogue with Batman, not even necessarily just action, but like dialogue, where he's talking about how he has faith, or there's no us without him, there's six of us, not five or something like, that type of thing just gets us so hyped. Aquaman stopping the water, the flood happening and everything. That shot of all of them like just charging the parademons and everything.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, come on,
yeah.
come on.
The villain looking better, having a
Oh
more
yeah.
ominous presence. The
Hmm.
scene where he's talking to Darkseid was
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
For a movie that came out, I believe it was after Infinity War. So we already had
Mhm.
Thanos. For Snyder to give us another villain like Darkseid and give him his due, that's really impressive in itself.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, and just giving us Darkseid in a way that's kind of similar to Thanos and Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's like we see a little bit of Darkseid do his thing, but it's very much teasing Darkseid and just introducing us to the presence and the idea of Darkseid,
Yeah.
giving us that lasting impact. I genuinely think that they should keep the same, not just the same actor for Darkseid in the DCU, but the same Darkseid have the same version, because the idea of the New Gods is that they are outside of the multiverse. They are in the fourth world. They're not part of any reboot or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the idea, at least. I know they do that in the comics all the time, but the idea of Darkseid is that he is ever present. He's never able to be gotten rid of. If they bring in Darkseid into the DCU, I genuinely think it should be the same version from the Snyder Cut, because like, bro, it's perfect. And, yeah, I think you would win a lot of points with the Snyder Bros and everything by keeping Ray Porter. That's the actors who played him, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he did such a great job with the little screen time that the character gets. I mean, do that. Oh
Yeah,
my
I
God.
agree. His voice was awesome as Darkseid. I
Oh
just
my
hope
God.
it, with because it seems like with everything that James Gunn does, there's people wanting to hate whatever he does, whatever
Right,
creative decision
right.
that he does because they blame him for, DC fans losing out on Snyder, but that wasn't the case. The case was the studio just kind of let him go. You know what I mean? And there's a difference between how they treat Snyder and Matt Reeves, because Matt Reeves is dealing with something personal that we're all not aware of, but he's dealing with something where he's getting more time for the Batman too. That probably should have been applied to Zack Snyder when he dealt with something, his tragedy. Instead of them giving him time, they were just like, let's get the guy who did Avengers and let's let's
Yeah,
have let's have him clean up this mess. Uh
yeah.
and so if James Gunn decides to use Darkseid, hopefully people won't be like, well, Zack Snyder did it. Hopefully it'll be them looking at it on the bright side where it's like, well, he's picking up from where Zack Snyder left off, and if they bring in Ray Porter, then hopefully that'll satisfy all sides of the DC fandom.
I would hope so. I mean, I don't even imagine that they're going to do Darkseid for like a while in the
Yeah,
DCU, just because it's so tied into the Snyderverse and everything. But Yeah, no, I appreciate a lot of the direction that Gunn is going for.
Hmm.
And in this, I appreciate a lot of the ideas that Snyder went for in the Snyder Cut. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, even though it is a very hardcore, kind of grimy film, that is all about kind of being badass and power and everything. What really attracts me to it is the heart of it, you know, like a lot of the emotional scenes, like with Gary and his father, or Clark and his mother, or Bruce kind of lamenting over what he did in BVS. Like that, I think, is what really makes the Snyder Cut work versus a lot of the surface level stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah. And also the fact that it doesn't have a CGI Henry Cavill
Oh, well,
lip in there, you know.
right.
Just a lot of the things that happen in the theatrical cut, it's like, how was this approved? How was this approved? You know, how were the CGI VFX artists not given enough time to really polish things up? It really looked awful. I only saw it once at one time, and I told you guys I was like, I'm never ever watching this movie again. And if there is a Snyder cut, I really hope there is, because part of my DC heart broke. You know what I mean? Like, wow, like I love these characters so much. Does the studio that owns these characters right now, do they care at all? You know, and as soon as the Whedon cut started, I was like, uh-oh, yikes, yikes.
Yikes. Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
Superman.
Lois. You ever see Groundhog Day where Bill's like a guy with whiskers, huh?
Yeah, but like, thank goodness, I think, for Snyder's version of that story. Whether you hate it or not, he completed his story, and you know, DC has a bright future if we all just believe and show up,
Yeah.
and not try to tear down these characters. You know what I mean? It's crazy seeing some DC fans, trying to tear down Superman. What? Who are you guys reading? Like, I don't understand. Like, how are you guys gonna act like that if you guys love Superman? I don't get it.
I don't understand it either. I mean, like I understand the love for Cavill because Cavill's a very handsome guy. I mean, look at this guy right now. Look, look at him.
Bro's
He's
a stud.
beautiful. Bro's a stud who plays Warhammer. He's every nerd's power fantasy, you know?
Yeah,
But
bro's a,
like
bro's a stud.
Bro's a stud. But it's been years. Some people have been in college and are graduating since the Snyder Cut came out. It's time to move on, baby. It's time for James Gunn to take it to new heights.
Yeah, and I'm
You
rooting
know?
for him. I'm rooting for him. I want him to. I wish him the best, and I want him to give us the best interpretation of his DC universe. But the only thing that kind of worries me about James Gunn and his mentality for his DC universe is this idea of like, we're different from Marvel because we're world building. We're not story
Mhm.
building. It's not one arc where we're reaching one bad like Thanos. We're world building. But in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. The MCU isn't world building? How's the MCU not
Yeah.
world building? If anything, the
Yeah.
MCU has popularized world building, and they're the best at it because they're the most successful studio that has ever succeeded with 30 plus movies or 30 plus projects. How's that not world building? I don't get it. So I don't know. I not one single studio has figured out why the MCU is successful. And that's kind of what worries me. I'm kind of hoping that James Gunn, he's coming from Marvel, will take the things that he learned and be like, let me apply it here and make a great universe. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
I think you world build through tone, that's the best proper way of setting up a reality in any regard. It's like, hey, Daredevil's over here while Guardians is over here, while Avengers and Spider-Man and Ant-Man, you know what I mean? Like give us
Right.
different tones and have those tones follow a story. Now, I think the reason why they might be worried about telling an overarching story is because of Marvel's recent fumbling of that story. But Gunn was in Marvel during its prime, so I don't know why it should be, especially if DC is just starting up again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Come on. No, I want to see the I don't mean to sound like a mouth breather or whatever, but I want to see the Marvel Cinematic Universe's phases 1 to 3 in the DC universe. I don't think that's a lot to ask for.
Yeah.
It's
I
what
don't
we've
think,
always wanted.
yeah, it's what they should have done in the beginning. Now they have like a third chance, get it done. You know what
Give me the animated series, live action.
I mean? Yeah, please, with the theme. Imagine hearing that.
These mother
Imagine hearing that in theaters.
Well, before we finish up on the Snyder Cut, I just wanted to show you and the audience, since I hate DC so much, some figures that I got.
Oh, those are sick, man. I love that. Where'd you
First
get those?
appearances,
Are
Target.
those, are those McFarlane?
Yeah, these are McFarlane
Nice.
dogs.
They always kill it. They always kill it with their figures.
The wire cape. The wire cape is where it's at, homie. Look at that.
Yeah, that's sweet. Have you taken any
Mhm.
photos of them yet?
I took some of Batman. My boy Soups. Just wait. We gonna get some.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, when it comes to the Snyder Cut, in conclusion, I think this is a film that, at its best, I think offered a lot of healing, not only for the fans, not only for the critics of the theatrical cut, but for hopefully Zack Snyder and his family. This is a movie that I think is very special, and I know you consider it's in the top 10 of comic book films for you, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, for
Yeah.
for it to be 4 hours and for it to be enjoyable throughout, you know, and have some of my favorite characters of all time, I would definitely say it's worthy of being a top 10 comic book movie.
Like how they said with the Flash, it's up there with the best. Come on,
Except
come
I'm
on.
not lying.
Right. Exactly. It's not like forgery of emotion.
Yeah.
It is what we want from a superhero film, the Snyder Cut. And by the way, I've been listening to the music from that for
Oh,
a
yeah.
minute. Unbelievable.
Incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
You
Junkie
know?
XL. I mean, his track for Flash, reversing time, that
Hmm.
guitar.
Oh my
Oh
God.
man, nasty,
Yeah. You know,
nasty.
the foundation theme is just
Oh, so
godly.
good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I definitely think that's an underrated aspect of the Snyder Cut. The music was just next level, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Had the movie worked out, I think the theme would be, and what I mean by that is, had the movie been released in the way that it was intended to be released, I think the music, but not only do I think the DCU would be in a different space
Yeah.
currently, I think the music would be remembered on the level of the Avengers theme, because it's perfect, that for a Justice League theme in this world, um, it- next to none.
Yeah. It's memorable too, which I think a lot of when it comes to the generic comic book movies, you can't really remember their theme. The theme
Yeah.
isn't prioritized as an essential part of the movie as the characters. So when that happens, I mean, it's worthy of those characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need each of those characters to have a theme, and Snyder's version of Justice League really fires on all cylinders with the music.
Oh my God. And a lot of the shots and everything, even though I would prefer, uh, a color grading that wasn't so muted, or
Hmm.
grayscaled.
Hmm.
Um, so many of the shots are just epic in scope and everything, and the aspect ratio helps that. There's a shot that is pretty incredible, for me, and it's one that I wouldn't imagine working so heavily for me, but it does. It's where uh, it's a shot with Aquaman where he's saving a guy from a sinking ship, and it's
Mm,
a low angle. And he's just on top. It's like a reveal shot of him on top of the ship, and the guy's looking up at him, and the waves are like crashing and everything, and the music hits him perfectly. That, for a movie like this to have the cinematography that it does, practical and virtual. I mean, come on, come on.
yeah.
My
Yeah,
God.
Snyder was really able to capture, I think, like the mythic power of those characters because they are, they're like gods. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Yeah, and in animation, you can capture that pretty well. In live action, it's harder. And I feel like with Snyder's skill set as a visionary, he was really able to capture that energy, which I really appreciate. And I hope the new DC universe can do that as well, but with better writing.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, there are some shots in from what we've seen in this new Superman film that I think evoke a lot of the same kind of power um
Mm,
and imagery. Like there's some imagery in there that actually does remind me of Zack Snyder's take.
hmm.
Like there's this shot in one of the trailers where we see in some country, like there's a battle or something happening and the child has the flag that has Superman on it, the
Yeah.
logo. um I think that's really powerful, that type of imagery. I think the cinematography in Superman upcoming is going to be a much more intimate in terms of like the characters, just who they are, how human they are, and everything. This
Hmm.
is much more like getting iconography down. And I would hope that the new direction is more personalized in a way.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure. And everything the trailer has told us looks like it's headed in that direction. You know what I mean? Something as simple as a kid, you know, in the middle of war holding up a flag in hopes that Superman will come to save him. Beautiful.
Powerful, powerful. Well, Angel, since you agreed with that, you some Ben and Jerry's for you.
Love me some ice cream.
Get the calcium in, bro.